Fans of The Last of Us factions could not be in any lower of spirits. News of a delay to the upcoming standalone Factions 2 experience, as well as a bombshell article detailing serious trouble for this project, has turned a lot of what was hype into despair for a game we have been waiting patiently for years to see. And it hasn't helped that Naughty Dog has been pretty silent, not offering much in the way of hope. And so it's probably no surprise that many have concluded that Factions 2 is cancelled. But the reality is, it's not. Dr. Pooplove here, and today I want to explain why The Last of Us Factions 2 is not cancelled, and I want to talk about what we should be looking for as we enter in this new period of silence. And look, before you start saying things in the comment like, Dr. Pooplove, you were just high on the hopium, all I ask is that you hear my full argument and then decide. So let's get right into it. Now, Naughty Dog recently put out this statement saying that Factions 2 needed more time, and this was basically damage control for Jason Schreier's article, which painted a much more dire picture. The article stated that Sony and Bungie have been conducting internal reviews of all their live service games in development, and they weren't really happy with the state of Factions. Basically, they didn't think it had enough longevity to hold fans over, which probably translates to not enough microtransactions. And so, as a result of this, the team was scaled back. And so, yeah, things look pretty dire. And while Naughty Dog's statement was vague, they did say that they're still working on the game and that it's only been delayed. And as we dig into Jason's article, which while it does sound pretty bad, even he says the game is not canceled. But regardless, it paints a pretty dark picture, and it infers that the writing may be on the wall. So it's hard to really blame anyone for saying it's only a matter of time until this game gets the axe. And Naughty Dog's silence a few weeks later on the 10th anniversary, a date that earlier this year was heavily hinted as a day to expect some news, well, it seems to only confirm the worst. So how then can I say that this game isn't canceled? Well, it takes a little bit more digging to arrive there. And the first place I want to start is with the devs. Even though Naughty Dog's official communications have been pretty silent, the devs have not been. On the day we did receive this heartbreaking news, some of Naughty Dog devs chimed in. Del Walker said, "Let us cook," signaling to the fans to be patient. And Sammy, who is the lead video editor, said, "It smells great in this kitchen." And now, as a video editor, he must have to sift through tons of footage. But we also got word from Paul Bichet, who has been working on Naughty Dog multiplayers for years. He even has a gun named after him in Uncharted multiplayer. And he still plays Factions. He even plays with us scallywags from time to time. And Paul said that he's still working on the multiplayer with a talented team. And these statements really did help us on that day. Give us assurance that, like Naughty Dog said, they are still working on it. But what is even more encouraging is that the devs are still talking about the game, even a few weeks later. Del Walker, again, recently put out a tweet about his wall of physical releases, and he mentioned that he anticipates adding Suicide Squad and The Last of Us Online to that list once they are ready. And by the way, I don't think Tilu Online is the name of this game. It's just probably an easier way to explain or shorthand say what this game is without actually revealing what the name is. But he also liked a few tweets, specifically one about hope for Factions 2, and another from a Naughty Dog dev who says he can't wait to do this soon. And to me, this is a good sign, mostly because the devs are still talking about it, even a few weeks after this drama unfolded. If things were truly canned or stalled out, you would think that he likely would just omit any reference to this game. But saying that he still is anticipating it gives just a little bit more faith that not all is lost here. And we also have Sammy, who chimed in again with a little color about Jason Schreier after they had a little back and forth and Jason ended up blocking him. And he did offer a little reminder that Jason is more interested in clicks on his articles and that they should be taken with a grain of salt. Of course, I don't think this means Jason is lying, and Sammy even says that he's not referring to anything in particular, although, I mean, come on. But regardless, I do think this statement is more so a reminder that the article or any articles from Jason are just one angle of the truth, that there could be omission of details or carefully chosen chosen words that are being used to heighten the drama and gain more engagement. At a minimum, Naughty Dog hasn't really offered much additional context to this, so it's clear that we just don't have the full story. Of course, though, this isn't all the ammo I have to defend Factions 2, because the next thing I want to mention is that this game is pretty far along, and probably past the point of it making sense to cancel. Jeff Grubb stated that Factions 2 was planned to be shown at the recent PlayStation Showcase, and well, this Bungie news is likely what made them pull it. Because one thing we learned from Naughty Dog is that they only really like to reveal stuff when they are close to ready. We saw this with The Last of Us Part 1 being announced and released within a few short months, and we've also seen this reiterated with interviews this year from Neil Druckmann. And so if Naughty Dog was planning to show us this game at this event, then you can imagine this game was pretty close to ready. We do know that it's playable at the very least. And so unless Bungie found some sort of fatal flaw with the game, you don't just easily flush 4 years of work down the toilet, especially when, by this indication, it's likely close to ready. Instead, you take the time to fix it. And look, Sony is trying to pour 60% of its budget into these live service offerings, and Naughty Dog is listed as one of their key live service studios. And they do want them to be the best possible version, so that they can get a return on that investment. They aren't just gonna push a game out if there's frankly more money to be made. As bad as that sounds, this is Sony. They've been acting this way for a while. And other recent news comes that Sony is expecting their first party games to get 90 pluses on Metacritic, and that they're okay with giving the devs more time if they need in order to get there. And I think that's kind of what's really happening here. And so because of this, Naughty Dog paused on the announcement until they get to that place. And this brings me to my next point, and that is that there just simply is too much potential to pass up on this project. Now look, live service games are pretty hard to be successful, but you have to imagine that the success rate will be much higher when it comes from an established IP that already has a built-in fan base. A fan base that plays the single player and factions and unsupported multiplayer so much that they're basically already playing it like a live service game. But beyond this, there's just a strong desire for a game like this. There's this game called The Day Before, which was the #1 most wishlisted game on Steam before it got delisted. And if you just looked at some of this gameplay reveals without knowing the name of this game, you would probably guess that this is Factions. It has very strong TLU vibe. Now the backstory behind The Day Before kind of puts into question if this game will actually even come out, or if it does, if it will be anything like these trailers. But that doesn't really change the fact that this is something people want. And these are from devs that no one has even heard of. This concept alone got it to the top of the wishlist charts. And so you have to imagine that an ambitious Factions game in an IP that's established would not only fill this relatively unserved market, but it would probably be even more powerful. And so I think it would be pretty foolish for Sony to just give up on the game. If they don't make a game like this, someone else eventually will. But look, with all of these points that seem to support the game not getting canceled, how can I explain the ramping down of production and scaling back of the team? And to be honest, I don't have the best explanation because I don't really understand game development enough. And I'll be honest, this is worrying news. My guess though is that whatever needs fixing doesn't actually need the whole team to do. I mean, if Bungie is concerned with the Factions gameplay loop, does that require a ton of people to redesign right now? We actually did get some insight into what Bungie is planning in terms of a gameplay loop for their upcoming marathon game. And so maybe the Naughty Dog multiplayer team is scoping out their own version of this. And while this is happening, a good number of their team is maybe going to help speed up the single player. And then they'll come back when they have determined the new direction. And here's something that I think a lot of people don't fully understand. And that is that for these 4 years, Naughty Dog hasn't been only working on this multiplayer. It's not that they haven't started on a single player as well. The job postings that have been out there have been separated out into multiplayer and single player positions. And so Naughty Dog has had multiple teams working at the same time. A lot of people think that by scaling this team down, it means that Naughty Dog is now going to put all of their efforts towards the single player, and I just don't think that's true. They're going to be working on both. Now, maybe they do have a new mix of how many people they want to work on both, but they've had a mix of multiplayer and single player already. So look, Yes, with all these points, I do think there is still a lot of room for hope for this game. But make no mistake, I do think it has a chance to be canceled, and I dread the thought of us getting that news one day. But I just think we are not at that point yet. And I think those that are reading these statements and this news and declaring that the game is canceled are just plain wrong. With all that I outlined, I believe there's actually a good faith effort to actually continue developing this game. And this news was not just some way of softening the blow. We have to give it more time, and we have to have faith in the developers who have poured years into this project that they will be able to pull this through to the other side and pass the next round of reviews. And so in the meantime, what I'm going to be looking out for to try to understand how this game is going is I'm going to be looking at job postings to see if multiplayer spots start opening up again. I'll be looking at some of these devs' Twitters to see that they're still hopefully talking about this game. And I'll be looking again at key dates like The Last of Us Day or any rumored PlayStation showcase to see if Naughty Dog is gonna start talking again. And look, depending on what we do see or what we don't see in the future, these things may make me change my tune. But as things currently stand with everything we've heard, no, The Last of Us Factions 2 is not canceled. But we would have a better picture of the situation if Naughty Dog took the time to actually talk and give the fans real clarity on what to expect and what the situation is. And that's why I go into depth on Naughty Dog's failed communication strategy in this video, which you should check out. But otherwise, so long, Pooper Troopers.